So how do you help a baby to sleep? Because it could be something in the first month or two that's very stressful, because there are some babies who are naturally good routine, good rhythms, sleep well. There's other babies who just don't seem to want to sleep at all, who always fuss and always cry. The first thing to do is many babies have days and nights reversed in the first week. One of the things is during the day, try to talk, try to interact, try to keep the house bright, because the lights being on and sunlight will help the normal rhythms of a baby, the normal hormones that help control sleep. It'll help those become normal so that your baby gets used to sleeping longer periods at night. Again, some babies are not great at that, but trying to keep your babies a little more stimulated, a little more active, and with the lights on may help rhythms and routine get to normal. At night, keep the lights off. Don't overstimulate a baby. Try to be a bit quieter, try to be calmer, just getting your baby into a good routine. This may or may not work. A lot of times in the first month, it's just the nature of your baby, whether you've got a good sleeper or a bad sleeper. It tends to be more helpful after a month or two. But those are the things we like to try, because if they can make sleep better, generally everyone is going to be happier with that. And everyone agrees on this. When your baby is sleeping, take a break. Try to take a nap. It is often overwhelming in the first month, especially if you're breastfeeding, to have a baby that's constantly demanding, fussing, crying, is not really smiling at you yet, is just feeding and sleeping and needing to be changed. And that can be very stressful when you don't have a baby who looks at you and smiles and seems to appreciate you yet. So if you get the chance to take a break, especially if you're tired and stressed, take a break. So what is the ideal cot? The good news is now that the regulations, especially in Singapore, are pretty straightforward, that it's almost impossible to find, at least in a normal store, a cot that's unsafe. But these designs where you've got the slats that are nearby that are either covered, say, with netting or not, but pretty much everything you're going to buy is going to be okay. So it is very important for good sleep safety, mainly because we found that since we've figured out better recommendations for positioning and for cribs, that accidental suffocation has dropped in half over the last 30 years. It's now become an incredibly rare thing for a baby to suffer crib death or to get suffocated, because we've learned how things should be done and what the safest things are. Definitely try not to put any pillows, quilts, any bumpers, or any fluffy toys in the bed with a baby. Bumpers are especially dangerous because there's some babies who like to sleep on their side, but putting bumpers in to hold a baby on their side definitely has an increased risk of causing suffocation. So things that are fluffy that you get your head sunken down into are very dangerous. Babies generally do not have good neck control in the first month. So if you get a head that sinks into a pillow or a blanket, most babies are just not strong enough to lift their heads well at that age, and that can cause some more serious problems. A firm mattress is perfect, well fitted, not cluttered, and short distances between the slats. Basically, if your baby can get their head in between the slats, that's too wide. It's very rare to ever find a crib these days with the slats being wide. My family, the crib I grew up in, was in my mom's family for 150 years. It was made in the late 19th century. It was a death trap. The slats were just perfectly far apart that you can get your head trapped. Thankfully, I and my sister survived it, but that's not the type of crib you should ever use. So it's a beautiful thing, but it sits in the corner now as a souvenir rather than something that I would ever use. And we always say, sleep on your back. That's something that up until the early 90s, we told you always put your baby on their belly to sleep because we worried about choking. Sleeping on the back, without a doubt, is safe. All babies spit up, and the worry is when you hear your baby choking and spitting, that's something that's dangerous, that you could truly choke in a way that's harmful, that you could get milk into your lungs and get a pneumonia or an infection. That turns out not to be true in a healthy baby. A baby is choking because they're doing what they should, they're protecting their airway, they're clearing out milk, and it's not something you ever have to worry about. Some babies, though, do prefer to sleep on their bellies. That is something that has a small risk. It is something to talk with your doctor about what's best, but if you have a safe sleeping environment, if you have a baby that absolutely is miserable, will not sleep on their back, and likes to sleep on their belly, talk to your doctor about whether it's safe. As your child gets older, it becomes safer, but in general, unless you have to, we'd always say, please put your baby on their backs to sleep. It is safe, it is healthy, and it will not cause problems. The only actual problem we see from it is something that's harmless, that now that babies are sleeping on their backs, over the last generation, about half of all babies develop a bit of a flat or an asymmetric head. That is something that does not need to be treated. It does not cause developmental problems. And 97% of the time by age 2, it rounds out. It's 99% of the time by age 5. So it will fix itself. We don't do helmets or pillows much anymore. Effectively, we never do those because they don't help with things. So it's something where if your baby does develop a bit of a flat head, mention it to your doctor, but don't stress. You don't need physical therapy in general, unless your baby has a very tight neck muscle, what we call torticollis. But if you've just got a baby who has a preference for one side of the head to sleep on, or the back of the head gets flat, don't stress about it. It will not cause problems long term. And after 4 months, it starts to slowly round out and fixes itself. For a bedtime routine, try your best to keep a similar routine. Preparing your baby to sleep, the normal sounds, the calmness. Try to put a baby down before he or she gets overtired while they're still a bit awake but starting to look drowsy. And try to set up, if you can, a good routine, because that does tend to help. What you want to have with routine is that your baby can help soothe him or herself, self-settling, getting used to a particular routine. If it works, some babies are terrible. They have no routine. Nothing is going to work. Some babies are just poor sleepers. But if you can establish a routine so that your baby is used to going down at a particular time, is used to the smells, the sounds around, and that helps relax a baby, that can help with quality of sleep. During the day, though, if your baby's a poor napper, it is very difficult to fix that. Some babies just want to be excited. They want to be looking around at the world. They want to be interacting with you and everyone. They do not want to go down more than 5, 10, 20 minutes before they pop back up and want to be held and interacted with. There is an old myth that babies have to sleep a certain amount of time because sleep is when you grow, sleep is when your brain develops. That is definitely a myth. Babies grow 24 hours a day. Babies will sleep as much as they need to sleep, but it does not cause any growth issues or developmental issues if you have a baby that just doesn't need that much sleep. It may not be fun, it may be more stressful, but there's no worry that you've got to force a baby to sleep a certain number of hours. And again, for everything involved in this, try to be consistent. If you can set up a routine, it helps. If you can't, don't stress about it, but trying to be consistent with when your baby goes down, what the routine is with going to sleep, that can make things better.